At 12:50 p.m. on March 28, 2025, the earth beneath Myanmar trembled, unleashing a catastrophic 7.7 magnitude earthquake. The epicenter, near the central city of Sagaing, shook with a ferocity that sent tremors across Southeast Asia. Buildings swayed violently, walls crumbled, and the ground became a sea of unsteady chaos. Dust choked the air, obscuring the sun and casting an eerie pall over the devastated landscape. Cries for help pierced through the settling dust, a chorus of fear and desperation. For those fortunate enough to escape collapsing structures, the immediate aftermath was a blur of confusion and terror. Families were separated, homes reduced to rubble, and familiar landmarks transformed into unrecognizable debris. The world watched in horror as news of the disaster spread, images of collapsed buildings and injured survivors, painting a grim picture of the situation unfolding in Myanmar. The ancient city of Mandalay, Myanmar's second-largest city, found itself brutally scarred by the earthquake's wrath. Historic temples, once symbols of enduring faith, lay in ruins, their intricate carvings reduced to piles of stone. A major bridge spanning the Irrawaddy River, a vital artery for the region, buckled and collapsed, severing a crucial transportation link. Hospitals, overwhelmed with the injured, struggled to cope with the influx of patients, their resources stretched thin by the sheer number of casualties. As if echoing the chaos in Myanmar, a 33-story skyscraper under construction in Bangkok, Thailand, swayed precariously before collapsing into a heap of twisted metal and concrete. The tragedy claimed the lives of at least 3 construction workers, sending shockwaves through the region. Across Southeast Asia, a sense of shared vulnerability emerged as the region grappled with the scale of the disaster and the urgent need for a coordinated international response. As if the initial earthquake wasn't devastating enough, a series of powerful aftershocks ripped through the region, further compounding the already dire situation. Just 11 minutes after the first tremor subsided, a magnitude 6.4 aftershock struck, sending fresh waves of terror through the devastated areas. Buildings weakened by the initial quake crumbled completely, burying those trapped beneath the rubble. The aftershocks, some registering magnitudes as high as 5.1 and 4.2, continued to rattle the region for hours, hindering rescue efforts and inflicting further psychological trauma. Each tremor brought with it the agonizing possibility of further collapse, forcing rescue workers to pause their efforts, their own lives at risk. The constant threat of aftershocks added another layer of complexity to the already daunting task of rescuing survivors. It forced rescue teams to constantly reassess the stability of structures and made it perilous to venture into already compromised buildings. The psychological toll of these recurring tremors cannot be overstated. Section 4. A race against time. Rescue and relief efforts hampered. In the face of such widespread devastation, rescue workers faced an uphill battle. Downed power lines and destroyed roads made it incredibly difficult to reach those trapped in remote areas, and the lack of specialized equipment hampered rescue efforts. Telecommunication outages further complicated the situation. With phone lines down and internet access sporadic at best, coordinating rescue efforts proved to be a logistical nightmare. The lack of communication made it challenging to assess the needs of different areas and to direct aid where it was most needed. Despite the monumental challenges, stories of resilience and compassion emerged from the disaster zone. Ordinary citizens, their own lives upended by the earthquake, joined forces with first responders, forming makeshift rescue teams. These courageous individuals, armed with whatever tools they could find, worked tirelessly, digging through the rubble in the hope of finding survivors. Section 5. A nation divided. The earthquake's impact on Myanmar's civil war. The earthquake struck a nation already grappling with a brutal civil war, exacerbating existing tensions and further complicating the already dire humanitarian situation. The disaster unfolded against a backdrop of political instability and violence, adding another layer of complexity to an already volatile situation. The ruling military junta, widely criticized for its human rights abuses and its handling of the ongoing conflict, faced accusations of hindering aid delivery and prioritizing its own interests over the needs of the people. Opposition groups, including ethnic armed organizations, seized the opportunity to criticize the junta's response to the disaster, accusing the military of exploiting the situation to further its own agenda. The earthquake highlighted the deep mistrust between the military and the people, further fueling tensions in the conflict-ridden nation. The need for protection and support for vulnerable groups became even more critical in the wake of the disaster. Section 6. A Glimmer of Hope, International Aid and the Long Road to Recovery. As news of the earthquake's devastation spread, the international community responded with an outpouring of support and aid. Countries around the world pledged financial assistance, and humanitarian organizations mobilized their resources, sending medical supplies, food and emergency shelter to the affected areas. The United States pledged $2 million in aid and deployed a USAID emergency response team to assess the situation and provide assistance. The International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies issued an emergency appeal for global solidarity, urging nations to contribute generously to the relief efforts. While the international response offered a glimmer of hope, the road to recovery for Myanmar promises to be long and arduous. As Myanmar begins the long and difficult task of rebuilding, the world must stand in solidarity with its people, offering not only immediate aid but also sustained support in the years to come.